I should have known the evening was going to end badly when my wife spent 40 minutes choosing earrings for a television show we were supposedly attending to prove how healthy our marriage was. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror, holding one silver hoop up to her left ear and one gold drop earring up to her right, like she was deciding the fate of two kingdoms. "What do you think?" she asked. Now, I had been married to Claire long enough to understand that "what do you think" was not a question. It was a trap with lighting. I leaned against the doorframe, already dressed, already ready, already regretting several decisions in my life that had led me to this moment. "The silver ones," I said. She looked at the silver hoop, then at the gold drop. "Really?" "Unless you wanted me to say gold," I said. Claire narrowed her eyes. "Why would I want you to say gold?" "Because you asked me after already putting on the gold bracelet." She glanced down at her wrist. I smiled. "I'm not new here." For half a second, she almost smiled back. Almost. Then she turned to the mirror and put on the gold earrings. "See?" I said. "Teamwork." She gave me that look she had perfected over 7 years of marriage. The look said, "You're funny, but unfortunately I'm still annoyed." "We're not going there to be sarcastic," she said. "That's tragic," I said, "because sarcasm is most of my cardio." She ignored that and leaned closer to the mirror, adjusting her lipstick. "We're going there to show people we're a strong couple." That was the official reason. The unofficial reason was that Claire had become mildly obsessed with a daytime streaming show called Perfect Pair, where couples competed in stupid relationship games while a studio audience clapped like trained seals and a host with aggressively white teeth pretended to care about emotional compatibility. The show was game show, half relationship therapy, half public execution. Yes, I know that is 3 halves. Couples answered questions about each other, completed silly challenges, revealed funny truths, and competed for a prize package that included a weekend at some overpriced spa resort where people drink cucumber water and pretend they don't miss pizza. Claire had submitted us months earlier without telling me, because nothing says healthy communication like entering your husband into televised couple Olympics by ambush. When she finally told me, I laughed. She didn't. That was my first clue. "It'll be fun," she had said. The way she said fun made it sound like something people say before a dental procedure. I asked her why she wanted to do it. She said, "Because people should see what we're like together." That was my second clue. People should see. Not, we could have fun. Not, it might be good for us. Not even, I want a free spa weekend because apparently our towels at home aren't soft enough for my emotional journey. No, people should see. Claire had always cared about how things looked. In the beginning, it was charming. She liked a clean house before guests came over. She liked nice photos. She liked matching wine glasses and good lighting and pretending we were the kind of people who owned serving boards for reasons other than cheese. But somewhere over the years, how things looked became more important than what things actually were, especially when it came to me. At home, I was her husband. In public, I had slowly become material. Not partner, not teammate. A setup for jokes. A prop with a mortgage contribution. A reliable punchline wearing shoes. At first it was harmless, or at least that's what I told myself. At dinner with friends, oh, Daniel tried to fix the sink himself. It was adorable. We had indoor rain. Everyone laughed, including me. Because yes, I did try to fix the sink. And yes, water did shoot upward like our kitchen faucet had joined a Vegas residency. Fair enough. At her cousin's barbecue, Daniel thinks grilling is a personality. Again, people laughed. I bowed. Thank you. My burgers and I will be signing autographs near the potato salad." That one was fine too. But then the jokes started getting sharper. He's not really a planner. He's more of a stand in the kitchen and ask where we keep the plates kind of guy. Except I paid the bills, scheduled the car maintenance, handled our taxes, booked half our trips, and knew exactly where the plates were because I was the one who bought them after she decided our old plates had divorced energy. He's sweet. Not exactly dominant energy, but sweet. He's sweet. Not exactly dominant energy, but sweet. Our friends laughed awkwardly. I didn't. Claire noticed. Later in the car, she said, "Don't be so sensitive." That phrase should come with hazard lights. "Don't be so sensitive" usually means, "I said something cruel, but I'd rather make your reaction the problem." I told her that. She rolled her eyes. "You always turn everything into a debate." So when she told me we had been accepted onto Perfect Pair, I should have refused. I should have said, "No, thank you. I don't need our marriage turned into sponsored content." But I didn't. Because despite what some people believe, I am not allergic to fun. I can play along. I can laugh at myself. I can take a joke when it is actually a joke and not an insult wearing a party hat. Also, I was curious. There is a dangerous stage in a marriage where you stop asking, "Can this get better?" and start asking, "How bad is this really?" That was where I was. And maybe part of me wanted to see what Claire would do when cameras were on. Maybe that sounds petty. Petty gets a bad reputation. Sometimes petty is just your survival instinct wearing sunglasses. So I agreed. Which brought us back to the bathroom, the gold earrings, and Claire's campaign to appear like half of America's most charming couple. She looked stunning. I'll give her that. Tall, polished, dark blonde hair, sharp blue eyes, the kind of smile that made strangers assume she was kind before they got close enough to read the fine print. She wore a cream blouse tucked into tailored navy pants, gold earrings, gold bracelet, nude heels, elegant, controlled, camera ready. I wore a dark green button-down, black jeans, and a blazer she had once approved of, which meant it had survived the fashion tribunal. As I grabbed my keys, she looked me up and down. "That shirt again?" I looked at my shirt, then back at her. "It's clean." That wasn't the question. "It's also emotionally available." "Daniel." "What?" "It's been very supportive," she sighed. "I just want us to look good together. Please don't do this tonight." "Do what?" "Get defensive." "Claire, I said 2 words. You said them in a tone. I didn't know my tone had a carry-on bag." She pressed her lips together. That was another thing about Claire. She loved sarcasm when she was the one in control of it. She hated it when I used it as a shield. The drive to the studio took 30 minutes. Claire spent 20 of them explaining how we should behave, like I had been recently thawed from ice and needed instructions on indoor voices. "Just be natural," she said. "Nothing says natural like a strategy meeting in traffic." I'm serious. I noticed. The air got colder. She ignored me. "Don't make weird jokes if the host asks something emotional." "My jokes are not weird." "You once told my mother that marriage is just 2 people legally agreeing to judge each other's dishwasher technique. And your father laughed." "Daniel?" "Fine, no dishwasher commentary. And don't try to win every point." I glanced at her. "It's a game show. It's not about winning. That is literally the only reason game shows exist. It's about connection." "Then why is there a prize?" She turned to the window. "You know what I mean." I did. She meant she wanted us to look good, but not in a way where I looked too good. That had become a pattern too. If I was quiet, I was distant. If I talked, I was taking over. If I joked, I was unserious. If I got serious, I was ruining the mood. Marriage to Claire had slowly become a game where the rules changed every round, and she was the only one holding the instruction manual. When we pulled into the studio parking lot, she reached over and touched my arm. For one moment, I thought maybe we were going to have an honest moment. A small one. Something like, "Hey, I know I've been tense lately, but let's just try to enjoy this." Instead, she said, "Please don't embarrass me." "Claire," I said, "I'm not the one who signed us up for a televised marriage obstacle course." Her hand withdrew. "See? That attitude." I smiled, but not nicely. "Relax. I'll be charming." Inside the studio, everything looked cheaper than it did on camera. That was comforting in a way. Television lies. Apparently, so did marriages. Nice theme. The lobby had bright walls, framed posters from previous episodes, and a snack table with tiny water bottles and muffins that looked like they had given up halfway through becoming food. A production assistant with a headset greeted us. "You must be Daniel and Claire." Claire instantly transformed. It was impressive, honestly. If emotional performance ever becomes an Olympic sport, my wife will bring home gold and then criticize the podium for clashing with her outfit. "Yes, hi," she said, bright and warm. "We're so excited." I smiled. Thrilled. I've already emotionally bonded with the muffins. The assistant laughed. Claire's fingers tightened around my arm. We were led into a prep room with 3 other couples. First there was Marcus and Talia, newlyweds, both attractive in that gym couple way where their skin looked hydrated and their problems probably had abs. Then there was Rob and Denise, married 22 years, who immediately gave off the energy of people who could assemble IKEA furniture together without involving law enforcement. And finally, there was Ethan and Marissa, dating for 2 years, early 30s, nervous but sweet. Marissa had curly hair, kind eyes, and the expression of someone who noticed more than she said. Claire sized everyone up in half a second. I could practically hear the mental spreadsheet opening. The host came in shortly after. His name was Blake Rivers, because apparently, television host is not just a profession, but a naming category. He had perfect hair, perfect teeth, and the smooth emotional tone of someone who had said, "Wow, that must have been hard for you," to at least 400 strangers. "Welcome everyone," he said. "Tonight's theme is connection under pressure." I looked at Rob. "So, marriage." Rob snorted. Denise elbowed him, but she was smiling. Claire laughed too, but hers had a warning label. Blake explained the format. Round 1, how well do you know them? Round 2, couple chemistry. Round 3, pet peeves and sweet spots. Final round, why we choose each other. The audience would vote. Points would be added. The winning couple would get the spa weekend. "Just remember," Blake said, "this is about love, humor, honesty, and having fun." 4 words that should never be placed that close together near married people and cameras. We were fitted with microphones. A makeup artist powdered my face. "This is new," I said. She smiled. "Just reducing shine." "Good. My forehead has been trying to launch a solo career." She laughed. Claire watched from 2 chairs away, expression tight. Before we went on set, Claire leaned toward me. "Please don't flirt with the staff." I blinked. I made a forehead joke. "You know what I mean." "No, I really don't. Unless my forehead is having an affair." "Daniel," I lowered my voice. "Claire, maybe save some of the jealousy for when I actually do something interesting." Her eyes flashed. "Good." I wasn't going to start the evening as a punching bag. The studio audience was already seated when we walked out. Lights hot enough to cook poultry, cameras moving, applause sign flashing like a command from a small dictatorship. We took our places behind little podiums with our names on screens. Daniel and Claire. Blake introduced each couple with cheerful little summaries. Marcus and Talia, newly married and still in the honeymoon phase. Rob and Denise, 22 years strong and still laughing. Ethan and Marissa, young love with big dreams. Then us. Daniel and Claire have been married 7 years, and Claire says their secret is balance. Blake turned to her. "Claire, tell us what you mean by that." She smiled beautifully. "Well, I'm definitely the organized one, and Daniel brings..." She glanced at me, eyes sparkling. "Let's call it spontaneous energy." Audience chuckle. I smiled. "Spontaneous energy," I said. "That's a kind way to say I occasionally enjoy joy." More laughter. Blake grinned. "So you keep things interesting?" "I keep receipts too," I said. "But mostly interesting." Claire's smile stayed in place, but I knew her well enough to see the tiny crack. Round 1 began easily. The questions were harmless. "What is your partner's favorite comfort food?" I wrote. "Grilled cheese and tomato soup." Claire wrote, "Pizza." Blake asked me first. I showed my answer. Claire blinked. "Oh," I said. "You eat grilled cheese and tomato soup whenever you're upset, stressed, cold, tired, or when a cloud looks at you wrong. The audience laughed. Claire held up pizza. I looked at it. Also fair. Pizza has been there for us as a couple. Point for me. Next question. What is your partner's dream vacation? Claire wrote, Italy. I wrote, Scottish Highlands. Blake raised an eyebrow. Interesting split. Claire laughed. See, this is Daniel. He thinks my dream vacation is wandering around in the rain looking at rocks. I turned to her. You told me last winter you wanted to rent a cottage in Scotland, visit old castles, and drink tea while it rained. That was just a mood. It was a 6-week mood with a Pinterest board. The audience laughed again. Claire's smile tightened. Point for me. Next. What is your partner's biggest fear? I hesitated before writing mine. Claire wrote quickly. Blake went to her first. For Daniel, I wrote failure. She tilted her head. He hates not being good at things. It's actually kind of cute. That was not wrong. Annoyingly. But the way she said cute made it sound like she was describing a puppy that couldn't climb stairs. I held up mine. Being dismissed. The room got quieter. Blake looked interested. For Claire? I nodded. She hates feeling like people aren't taking her seriously. For a second, Claire's face changed. Not softened exactly. More like she was surprised I had seen something real. Blake said, That's thoughtful. I shrugged. I pay attention. The audience gave a little, aw. Claire smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That was when the shift started, because up to that point, she had assumed I would be safe. Predictable. The husband who would laugh when nudged, smile when corrected, and accept little cuts because cameras were rolling. And Claire did not like when props developed opinions. Round 2 was called Couple Chemistry, which sounded like either a relationship segment or a lawsuit waiting to happen. We had to answer questions by raising paddles. Him, her, or both. Blake asked, Who is more likely to apologize first? I raised both. Claire raised him. The audience laughed. Blake said, Claire, no hesitation there. Claire gave an exaggerated sigh. Daniel apologizes fast because he hates tension. I smiled. That's one interpretation. Blake turned to me. What's yours? I apologize when I'm wrong, I said, and occasionally when I'm hungry and need the conflict to end before dinner. Claire jumped in. He also apologizes when he doesn't understand why I'm upset. I looked at her. That's called asking for clarification. No, it's called emotional homework. Interesting. I thought homework had instructions. The audience laughed harder than she expected. Her eyes flicked toward them. A tiny warning bell rang in my head. Claire liked laughter, but she liked controlling where it landed. Blake moved on. Who is the better problem solver? I raised both. Claire raised her. Another laugh. Blake grinned. Claire, you're confident. Well, she said, placing a hand lightly on my arm. Daniel is very supportive, but I usually have to take charge. I looked at her hand. There it was, the public touch. I lifted my paddle and changed it to him. The audience reacted. Claire turned sharply. Blake leaned in. Oh, Daniel changes his answer. I nodded. I was trying to be generous. A few people laughed. Claire laughed too loudly. That's adorable. I turned to her. What? Me having self-esteem? The room laughed again, but this time there was a little edge. Blake, sensing ratings like a shark smells blood, said, Daniel, tell us why you say you're the better problem solver. I smiled. Calm, easy. Well, last year our basement flooded while Claire was out of town. I handled the plumber, insurance, cleanup crew, replaced the damaged storage shelves, and somehow prevented her Christmas decorations from becoming swamp fossils. Rob clapped once. That deserves a medal. Denise said, and a drink. I pointed at her. Thank you. Blake turned to Claire. Did he save Christmas? Claire smiled tightly. He handled that very well. Careful, I said. That almost sounded like praise. The audience laughed. Claire didn't. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was when my wife decided subtlety was for cowards. Blake smiled at the camera. All right, let's turn up the heat a little. Round 3, pet peeves and sweet spots. That already sounded like a bad idea. Each of you, Blake continued, will share one thing your partner does that annoys you, and one thing you genuinely appreciate about them. Keep it honest, but keep it kind. Kind. That word hung in the air like a suggestion no one intended to follow. Blake pointed at Marcus and Talia first. They did exactly what you'd expect. Light teasing, soft compliments, the kind of polished, Instagram-ready honesty that makes you believe in matching workout sets and joint protein shake routines. Then Rob and Denise. Rob said, "She steals the blankets." Denise said, "He snores like a chainsaw with emotional baggage." The audience laughed. Then Denise added, "But he's been my best friend for 22 years. Rob reached for her hand. Same. Then Ethan and Marissa. Marissa hesitated before speaking. "He overthinks everything." Ethan nodded. "I do." She smiled. "But it also means he really cares about getting things right." That landed softly, nicely. And then it was our turn. Blake turned to Claire. "Ladies first." She smiled at Blake, then at the audience. "My biggest pet peeve," she said lightly. "Daniel has this habit of starting things he doesn't always finish." The audience chuckled. I tilted my head. "Like conversations?" A few people laughed. Claire ignored me, still smiling. "Projects, plans, sometimes even simple tasks. He gets excited, but then I end up picking up the slack." More laughter, a little louder. Blake nodded. "That can be frustrating." Claire gave a sympathetic shrug. "Oh yeah, it's just who he is." "Interesting," I said. "Because from my perspective, I tend to finish things that are actually mine to finish." The audience reacted with a small, "Oh." Claire's smile tightened just a fraction. Blake jumped in quickly. "All right, Daniel, your turn. Pet peeve?" I leaned slightly on the podium, thinking for a second. Then I said, "Claire doesn't ask questions when she already has a conclusion." Blake raised his eyebrows. "Explain that." "She'll ask what I think," I said, glancing at Claire. "But she's not looking for an answer. She's looking for agreement. And if she doesn't get it, suddenly we're having a completely different conversation." Claire let out a small laugh. "That's not true." I looked at her. "This happened to the earrings about an hour ago." The audience laughed. Claire's laugh came half a second late. Blake grinned. "We're getting specifics now." "Always," I said. "I like data." Claire tilted her head, still smiling but sharper now. "Or maybe you just like arguing." I shrugged. "Only when it's presented as a group activity." That got a bigger laugh. Claire shifted her weight slightly. She was losing control of where the laughter was landing. Blake clapped his hands lightly. "All right, now let's balance that out. Claire, what's something you appreciate about Daniel?" "Oh, he's very dependable," she said. "If I need something done, eventually it gets done." I raised an eyebrow. "High praise." She smiled sweetly. "I'm honest." Blake turned to me. "Daniel, what do you appreciate about Claire?" I didn't rush it. "I appreciate that Claire knows how to take a room," I said. "She's confident, sharp, quick on her feet." Claire's expression softened slightly. Then I added, "Sometimes I just don't know if I'm part of the moment or part of the performance." Claire's smile froze. "Oh my God, he's being dramatic." "No," I said. "I'm being specific." Blake cleared his throat. "All right, let's keep things moving. This is great. Great honesty." Claire leaned slightly toward him, smiling again, turning the charm back on. "Daniel tends to overanalyze everything," she said lightly. "He turns small things into big conversations." I nodded. "And you turn big things into jokes." That one landed. Blake stepped in again, sensing the shift. Okay, I see what's happening. We've got some real communication styles clashing here." "Clashing?" I said. "I thought this was balance." Claire exhaled through her nose, still smiling, but the edges were starting to show. "See?" she said to Blake. "This is what I mean. He always needs to have the last word." I shook my head slightly. "No, I just prefer my words to be included." Blake raised his hand slightly. "All right. Before we turn this into a full-on debate, let's do a quick lightning round." "Quick answers," Blake said. "No explanations, just instincts." He pointed to Claire first. "Who cares more about appearances?" Claire didn't even blink. "Me." Laughter. Then she added without missing a beat, "Someone has to." I nodded slowly. "Fair," I said. "You do a great job." Claire smiled, satisfied. Blake turned to me. "Same question." "Claire," I said. "All right," Blake said. "Who's more emotionally expressive?" Claire raised her. I raised both. Claire laughed. "No." I looked at her. "Just because I don't perform it doesn't mean it's not there." Blake quickly moved on. "Who is more likely to keep a secret?" Claire raised her. I raised him. Claire laughed again. "Absolutely not." I smiled. "I've kept every argument we've ever had off social media. That counts for something." The audience let out a low, "Oh." Claire's smile faltered for just a second. Blake's eyebrows shot up. "Okay, that's—" he started. Blake glanced at the producer off camera for half a second, then back to us. "All right," he said, a little more careful now. "Let's bring it back to something positive. Final round. This is where couples really shine. Why do you choose each other?" Blake gestured to her. "Claire, why do you choose Daniel?" "I choose Daniel because he's stable, reliable. He tries, even if he doesn't always get things right." There it was again. Compliment wrapped around a correction. Then Blake turned to me. "And you, Daniel?" "Well," I said, "that's a good question. I used to think I chose Claire because she made life interesting. And she does. She owns a room." Claire's expression softened again. "But somewhere along the way," I said, "I think I stopped asking whether I was part of that, or just something that came with it." Quiet. "I don't mind being joked about," I said. "I don't mind being the lighter one in the room sometimes. I don't even mind losing a few rounds on a game show, but I do mind being reduced to that." Silence again. "I don't think you mean to do it," I added, glancing at her. "I think it just became normal." Claire opened her mouth, closed it. Blake looked between us, clearly aware this wasn't scripted anymore. "And sitting here," I said, "I realized something pretty simple. You don't actually respect me," I said. Claire let out a short laugh. "Are you serious?" I looked at her. "Yeah," I said. "I am." Blake shifted in place. "Okay, let's—" "No, it's fine," I said, still calm. "We're being honest, right?" "This is not the place for this," she said under her breath. I nodded. "You're right." A small pause. Then I added, "But it is the place where it finally made sense." Claire stared at me like I had just broken some unspoken contract, which, to be fair, I probably had. The agreement that whatever happened between us stayed polished, presentable, and preferably funny. "This is not funny," she said, low, tight. "I didn't say it was," I replied. Blake shifted his weight, hands hovering in that awkward space between host and guy who just realized this isn't in the script. "All right," he said, forcing a smile. This is real, and that's what the show is about, but let's just—" "Blake," I said, still calm, "you asked a real question." He nodded slowly. "We did. And I gave a real answer." Claire let out a breath through her nose. "No, you decided to make a scene." I looked at her. "You've been making one all night. I just stopped playing my role in it." That one landed. Claire turned slightly toward the audience, like she was recalibrating, trying to regain ground. "See, this is what I mean," she said with a strained laugh. "He takes things way too seriously. This was supposed to be fun. He always does this," she continued, leaning into it now. "If something isn't going his way, suddenly it's a whole thing. Blake glanced at me like he expected a response. I gave him a small shrug. Claire frowned. "Say something," she said. I looked at her. "You're doing great." A couple of people laughed. Claire's expression tightened again. Blake cleared his throat. "Okay, let's bring it back for a second. Claire, do you feel like Daniel is misrepresenting things?" Finally, a question she could work with. "Yes," she said immediately. "He's twisting things. I joke, we both joke. That's our dynamic." I nodded. "We joke, yes. I just didn't realize the joke only worked in one direction." Claire blinked. "That's not true." I tilted my head. "Name one time you've made a joke about yourself like that." Claire recovered quickly. "That's not the point." "It kind of is," I said. "No, the point is you're making me look bad on national television." I let out a small breath. "Claire, I haven't said anything that didn't already happen." Blake stepped in again, more cautiously now. "Claire, do you feel like maybe some of the jokes earlier didn't land the way you intended?" "No," she said. "I think people are overreacting." The room shifted again. Marissa, the quiet one from earlier, leaned slightly forward from her podium. "I don't think it's overreacting," she said carefully. Claire turned to her, surprised. "It's just how we talk." Marissa nodded. "Maybe, but it didn't really feel like you were talking with him." Claire let out a short laugh. "This is unbelievable. Suddenly everyone became an expert on our relationship." "No," I said. "They're just reacting to what they're seeing. And what they're seeing is you turning this into some kind of—" "Claire," I said, not louder, just firmer. "I'm not turning anything into anything. I'm just not covering for it anymore," I added. That was the moment. Because for the first time, it wasn't about the show. It wasn't about winning or losing or how we looked. It was about what had been happening for a long time, without an audience. Claire's eyes held mine. "So what? This is it?" she said. "You're just going to walk out and make me the villain?" I shook my head slightly. "No, I think you did a pretty good job of that yourself." Claire's jaw tightened. Blake stepped forward a bit. Okay, let's pause for a second." A producer's voice echoed faintly from somewhere off camera. "Cut! Cut!" The lights didn't go off, but something shifted. The illusion cracked. The audience relaxed, murmuring. Blake let out a breath he'd been holding. "We're going to take a quick break." Claire turned to me immediately, her voice dropping. "What are you doing?" "Answering questions," I said. "This is not the time." I looked around the set. Cameras, audience, other couples pretending not to listen. Feels like exactly the time. "You're humiliating me." I held her gaze. "No," I said. "I'm just not helping you do it to me anymore." She stared at me, like she didn't recognize the person standing in front of her. Maybe she didn't. Because the version of me she was used to would have laughed, would have smoothed it over, would have made a joke to get us back on track. That version of me had been very convenient. For everyone. Except me. Claire shook her head, almost in disbelief. "You're blowing this way out of proportion." Blake approached carefully, like someone walking toward a situation that might explode if he breathed wrong. "Hey," he said quietly. "We can edit around this if you want. We don't have to use—" "It's fine," I said. He blinked. "You're sure?" "Yeah." I glanced at Claire, then back at him. "Let people see." "All right," he said, voice smooth again. "We're going to continue. Final round." Claire exhaled slowly beside me, shoulders relaxing just enough to look composed again. Blake looked between us. This is where couples make their case. Why they work. Why they choose each other. He gave Claire a small nod. She stepped into it immediately. Of course she did. "Look," she said, voice warm again, turning slightly to the audience. "Every couple has their dynamic. Ours just happens to include humor. We tease each other. That's how we connect. Daniel takes things more seriously sometimes, and I probably joke more than I should. But that doesn't mean there's no respect. It just means we're different." Blake tried to keep it moving. "Let's bring it back. Final statements." Why do you work as a couple? Claire jumped in first. Because I balance him, she said. He's more laid back. I keep things structured. It works. I looked at her for a second, then back at Blake. We don't work, I said. Claire turned to me instantly. Excuse me? Blake froze. The audience went quiet again. I think we worked, I continued. Past tense, when it was mutual. Claire let out a short laugh. You're really doing this here? Blake stepped forward a bit. Daniel, are you saying... I'm saying, I cut in calmly, that this isn't a bad night. This is just the first honest one in a while. Blake cleared his throat. We'll go to audience vote. Cards went up slowly. The screen flashed results. Marcus and Talia won. The audience applauded. Blake forced a smile. Great energy tonight. Claire leaned toward me. Say something. I looked at her. There's nothing to fix. Her voice dropped. You're embarrassing me. I nodded. I stopped volunteering for that. She stared. So that's it? I reached up, unclipped the mic. Yeah, I said. I said it on the podium. Blake hesitated. Daniel, I shook my head. You got what you needed. I stepped back. Claire grabbed my arm. Don't do this. I gently moved her hand away. I'm not doing anything, I said. I'm just not doing this anymore. I turned and walked off stage. Behind me, I heard Blake try to wrap it up. Claire didn't follow. There was still an audience. The drive home was quiet, not tense, not loud, just empty. Claire stared out the window most of the way. I kept my eyes on the road. No music, no small talk. When we got home, she went straight to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water. I took off my jacket, set the keys down. Claire, I said. She didn't turn. I know what you're going to say. I doubt that. She exhaled, finally facing me. You think I humiliate you? I know you do. She didn't argue. That was new. I'm not doing this to fight, I said. I'm doing this because I'm done pretending it's fine. She crossed her arms. So what now? She asked. Simple, I said. Either we rebuild this without the constant digs, or we stop wasting each other's time. Claire looked at me for a long second. And if I say I didn't mean it like that? She asked. It doesn't matter how you meant it, I said. It matters how it lands, and it's been landing the same way for years. Another pause. Okay, she said quietly. I didn't realize how far it went. I thought it was just how we talked. It was, I said. Until it wasn't. She let out a breath. And you didn't say anything. I did, I said. You just called it overreacting. She looked down, then back at me. All right, she said. Then we change it. Not just say it, I replied. Actually change it. A faint, tired smile. Deal. She picked up the glass, finally took a sip. Just so we're clear, she said, glancing at me, you're still terrible at finishing home projects. I looked at her. Then I smirked. And you still ask questions you've already answered. She almost smiled. Okay, she said. Maybe we keep the jokes. Only those that don't bother us, I finished. She nodded. And for the first time in a while, it felt like we were actually on the same side of it. A few weeks later, the episode aired, and it took off. Clips spread everywhere, people arguing in the comments about who was right, who went too far. Our phones didn't stop buzzing for days. Friends had a field day with it. For months, every dinner somehow circled back to, so Daniel, still finishing your projects? Or, Claire, you bringing your balance tonight? We laughed, because now it actually was a joke. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.